I got in trouble on the internet for buying a fidget toy on Amazon, and I want to talk about it. Thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. You can use code Molly Burke for 10% off your purchase of a website or domain name. This happened probably about a year ago. I did a series of Instagram stories and I was sharing different things I do when I'm struggling with my mental health because my PMDD, which is premenstrual dysphoric disorder, was really bad that month and I was just dealing with significant anxiety. And so I was kind of doing like this series of 5 or 6 Instagram stories that day, sharing different things that help me when I notice I'm struggling with my mental health. So I talked about things like how when I'm depressed or anxious or dealing with PMDD, I make sure to put on a really cute outfit, even if I'm not leaving the house. And it can be super comfy still, because you guys know me, I don't wear anything that's not comfy. But I try to go into my closet and like wear something that I haven't worn in a while, or wear something that makes me feel like really good about myself, or even get experimental and pair pieces together that I've never worn in an outfit, because fashion is creativity and creativity makes me feel good. I talked about how I do my makeup in really like fun, extra experimental ways. So maybe that day I try a new eye look or technique I haven't tried before, or do a lipstick that's in like a fun, more bold color than I usually do day to day. Because again, for me, doing my makeup is a form of self-care. And I talked about how even though it's when I want to go to the gym the least, it's when I make sure to push myself to go, even if it's literally just for 20 minutes walking on the treadmill, because I know it's good for my mental health to do that. I make sure that I'm eating healthy and having good sleep hygiene, making sure I'm having a good night's sleep each night to energize my body. I'm making sure that I let my friends and family who are close to me know. I tell my fiance and my parents, hey, I'm struggling extra these past few days. I just want you to be aware. That way they know to be delicate around me, or to step up and support me, and to encourage me to do the things that they know will help me. And at the end of all these stories, I talked about how I love fidget toys and how fidget toys really help me when I'm anxious, to get some of that anxious energy out and like focus on, fidgeting with this toy. And how I did something nice for myself and I bought 2 new fidget toys that got delivered overnight on Amazon. And I promptly received a slew of Instagram messages from just one account, but they were basically crucifying me for ordering from Amazon, and how if I actually cared about disability and I actually cared about human rights, I wouldn't order on Amazon. And this really upset me, because if you know me and you know the work I do, I deeply care about disability. I deeply care about human rights. But what really frustrated me was that this person attacking me, who seems to be a follower of mine, didn't take a few seconds to think to themselves, why might Molly have chosen to place that order on Amazon over getting these in any other way? Because I spend my life constantly trying to put myself in other people's shoes and constantly justifying other people's behaviors to a fault, I will add. Like, I'm aware that sometimes I actually do that too much. I've developed this habit because of a lifetime of feeling misunderstood by society and feeling like other people don't care to put the work in to understand me. It's part of why I make content, because I want to give people a space to learn in a way that's hopefully fun and entertaining and engaging, and that feels safe. Okay, I'm gonna stop myself here, and before I go any further, I want to thank the sponsor of today's video, Squarespace. I've been hosting my website, mollyburkeofficial.com, on Squarespace for as long as I can remember at this point, but this past year we did totally revamp it and give it a facelift, and we used one of their newest tools to help us. Design Intelligence uses cutting-edge AI to help you build a beautiful, bespoke online presence for your business or brand that fits your unique needs. All you have to do is answer a few quick questions, and then it helps generate the website for you. Of course, you're able to tweak it from there, but it really makes it so simple and seamless. And once your website is up and running, you can start making money immediately by selling content. You can sell anything from courses, blogs, videos, or memberships. And then you can set up recurring revenue by putting up a paywall. Just set the price, and then you choose whether you want a one-time payment or a subscription. Even if you don't make content, there are still ways to make money on Squarespace by turning any lead into paying clients using proposals, estimates, contracts, and even invoices all through your website. So if you're ready to get building your Squarespace website, head to squarespace.com/MollyBurke to get 10% off your purchase of a website or domain name. All right, back on to my soapbox. I remember years back, like 2019 YouTube, when I was doing all these different collaborations, and a lot of new eyes were on me and a lot of people who had never had experience with disability. And they started judging me and making mean comments about how I sometimes cut people off when I'm in conversation. And it hit me that they could not for a second take a minute to realize how difficult having a group conversation might be when you can't see other people's mouth movements or body language. And I'm fairly certain I even made a video explaining this. How, there's ways in which my blindness impacts me and the behaviors I develop because of it that go so far beyond just I can't see, I can't read, I can't drive, I can't look in a mirror. My blindness impacts all of me. And that means when I'm in group conversations, sometimes I unintentionally will cut somebody off because I can't see that they took a brief moment to pause and think through what they're going to say next. The way a sighted person can see, oh, I see the wheels in their head turning, I'm going to give them a second to collect their thoughts and continue. Sometimes it sounds like that person's thought has finished, so I jump in. I can't see in a group conversation when somebody else at the table has kind of leaned forward, indicating they want to talk next, or even put their hand up and started to open their mouth to indicate, I have something I'd like to say. I want to jump in. So I jump in first. And so it's been a theme throughout my whole life where I recognize that people can't put themselves in my position and recognize all the ways in which my blindness changes my lived experience from their own. And so much of my work has been about demonstrating how the same we are in an attempt to bridge the gap and say, as a blind person, I feel so othered, let's focus on my sameness. But in doing that, it's also important to hold space for our differences and for all of us to try to take those moments and step back and say, why might somebody make a different choice than me? Or why might their lived experience impact their actions that I wouldn't do? So to explain, and I know I have so many disabled so many disabled followers who are going to be like, girl, you're preaching to the choir. Don't worry, I get it. But I do want to explain for those who might not get it. For me as a blind woman who lives in a city that is famous for not having public transit and you need to drive everywhere, I have limited options for shopping independently. Those options, if I need to purchase things that might be found at 3 to 5 different stores, means my options are asking my sighted fiance to take half of his day to drive me around and help me find those items, which makes me feel dependent, which takes more of his time to help me when he already helps me in lots of ways, makes me feel like more of a burden and less independent and gives me less autonomy. So that's one option. My other option is to pay for minimum 2, maybe up to 8, depending on how many stores I need to go to, Uber rides, where every time I'm worried about whether I'll get denied access with my guide dog, I may be worried about my safety in the back of that car, I am spending a ton of extra money, and I am then having to rely on a bunch of assistive technology once I get into the store. I'm not saying either of these options aren't possible, but I am saying neither of them are the best options to rely on always, because they both have downsides that I as a blind consumer have to consider when living my life. The third option is that I use a platform like Amazon, which is unique in that it allows me to get items ranging from what I would find at a grocery store to what I would find at a convenience store, what I would find at a makeup or clothing store, what I would find at a pet store, what I would find at a drugstore, all in one place. And I can make one purchase to get all of that on my own using my screen reader, while being able to read reviews to get an understanding of an item that I can't see. It also allows me to be able to get an item. I live in LA in sometimes under an hour or next day or same day delivery, which isn't an option on a lot of other sites. A lot of other sites I shop on might be 3 or 5 day delivery. So for all those reasons, yes, there are times when I choose to shop on Amazon because unfortunately it's the most accessible option for me. And I can hold space for two things to be true. I cannot love some of Amazon's practices, and I can recognize that for me as a disabled individual, it's one of, if not the most accessible option for me to independently get the things I need. Those can both be true at the same time. And I feel like it's so hard to live in a world where, but let me be clear, I'm not an angel. I am not perfect. I am a flawed individual, as we all are. But it is hard to live in a world where I get comments like that, where I'm like, wow, this person is condemning me for something that I felt like was the best option for me. And they took no time to try to understand why that might be. When I spend an exhaustive amount of time every day trying to empathize with other people and trying to understand lived experiences that I don't. I am the type of person who chose growing up to watch a ton of documentaries and consume a lot of content from creators who have lived experiences that differ from mine, whether that be about the trans experience, or that be about the immigrant experience, or that be about things like addiction, lived experiences that haven't touched my personal life. So I don't understand them. And I think, it's why I started the What It's Really Like podcast, was to have space for those conversations that help people develop lived understanding. And, in my episode, if you saw with Chan Plant, and I think I do this in almost all of my episodes, where I try to draw a connection to lived experience. Chan was talking about how she chooses to, for the most part, only wear prosthetic eyes that don't look like a real eye. Because she realized when she would wear one that looked realistic, it only made her feel like she was supposed to have a real eye there. It only made her focus on what she was missing. And I drew the connection to something much less significant in my life, but the only way that I could relate was to think about the fact that when I was growing up, I felt really insecure about being flat-chested, and I would wear a lot of push-up bras. And in wearing those push-up bras, developed this feeling like I needed a breast augmentation because it made me feel like I was missing something that was supposed to be there. And the only way to get that was for real, without just wearing a bra, was to get a breast augmentation. And at a certain point in my journey, I completely stopped wearing push-up bras, and now for like a decade of my life don't even really wear bras for the most part. And all of a sudden I stopped wanting a breast augmentation because I no longer felt like my body was incomplete. That was the way that I could draw a connection to her lived experience. I do that all day, every day. My fiance will tell you, like, somebody will be, like, rude, and I'm immediately like, well, who knows, like, what they experienced this morning? They might be going through XYZ. I see videos of people like, oh, I met so-and-so celebrity once, and they were an ass, and this was what they did, and I'm like, you can't make that conclusion until you meet them multiple times and they treat you that way every time. We don't know what that day was like for them. We don't know what they were going through. We'll be in traffic and somebody will be a jerk and cut us off, or something. They'll run a red light and my partner will get upset. I'm like, well, who knows? Maybe XYZ. Maybe they're rushing to the hospital and that's why they're speeding, because they just got a call that a loved one was hurt in an accident. Like, I am constantly, that's just how my brain works. And it frustrates me that not everybody's brain works like that, because I feel like we'd live in such a better world if we could all try to understand others and put ourselves in their shoes instead of dropping or jumping to conclusions. I was at the gym the other day and I walked to use the bathroom, and in the women's room, somebody made a remark to their friend, like, what's with the dog? And I was like, could you not for a split second think of any reason a dog might be in an establishment that doesn't allow dogs? Why do you jump to making a snarky remark? And it was snarky because I could hear the tone of voice. Why is your immediate reaction jump to making a snarky remark and a judgment instead of sitting with it for 2 seconds and realizing, oh, there's lots of other lived experiences that are different from my own. People go about the world differently than I do. There might be a reason that dog is there that I don't understand. Maybe I should try to understand. Why don't more people work like that? How can we get people to operate like that? I don't know. If you like exist in a world where your brain works like mine does, I'm so curious to hear your perspective on this. And if you're somebody who doesn't operate like that, I'm equally interested to hear it. You know, I love making these Molly rambles like a place for kind, compassionate understanding and learning, and discussion in the comments. But I don't know. I guess if you're somebody who doesn't operate in the world like I do, I implore you to try. Let this be a little nugget that sits with you and gives you that second of a reminder to think, like, in those moments when you want to jump to judgment, jump to understanding. And again, I know sometimes I do it to a fault. Like, sometimes I do trust too easily, and I do give people too many chances. And I do justify people's wrong behaviors. And that is where this is a flaw of mine. But I would rather live in a world where I try to be compassionate and understanding than live in a world where I jump to judgment. I would rather live in a world where I see our sameness instead of seeing our differences and separate from them. I feel like we see this separation, this divide a lot on social media. We only get these glimpses of these moments of somebody's life, and we might not know anything about them except that video that pops on our For You page as we're doom scrolling. And if we don't immediately connect with exactly what they're saying, we can jump down that person's throat. And all we see in that person is how we're not the same. But there might be a million things you have in common. You're both the second born in a family of 3, and you both love to order a matcha latte unsweetened, and you both work in HR. And actually, if you met in real life, the first things you would see is all the ways you have in common. Oh my God, we have the same sense of humor. And oh my God, we connect over this XYZ thing that we've both experienced. But when all we see is that like snippet moment of our differences, it's so hard to recognize that we're all humans, that we all have a heartbeat, and we all need air in our lungs, and we all need sleep to function. And I don't know, it just frustrates me. I joke all the time with my fiance that, like, my God, the world would be so much easier if I could just be selfish and not care about other people. Like, wow, wouldn't that be easy? But at the same time, as much as I joke about how much easier that would be, because I'd have to cry a lot less about other people, it also isn't a world that I want to live. I don't want to live like that, and I wish other people didn't live like that. Anyways, thank you again to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Use code Molly Burke to get 10% off your purchase of a website or domain name. And if you enjoyed this video, I think you would also enjoy last week's, where I talked about the Aritzia dressing room. There's a bit of crossover in the themes of that video and this one. So if you haven't seen that yet, I think you should check it out. And if you have and you want something else to watch, you can click over and watch this one. Okay, thanks guys. I'll see you next time.